Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Mylaine Riobe. Thanks for joining us. I'm talking with Mylaine Riobe, the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine. Mylaine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's great to be here.
Great. Tell us about your company and yourself, and then let me dive into the talking points for today's show.
Sure. I'm a board-certified integrative medical doctor and former board-certified OBGYN. We combine 3 different systems of medicine, 2 that are preventive, Chinese medicine and functional medicine, with our conventional medicine at the Riobe Institute. And our goal is to prevent diseases and to help people live their best lives.
I'm a big fan of the ancient forms of medicine. I think that there's a lot that modern medicine can use from them.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you wanted to talk about today, and I'm very interested in, is are your vitamins killing you? And what you need to know. I'd like to hear about this.
Absolutely. It's a very confusing topic because it's not a regulated industry, so that's one problem. And the way that the vitamins are studied, they're not really studied comprehensively. So in many studies that we see, patients are not tested for their needs, and they're just given random vitamins. And if you're not getting the vitamin you actually need, the study will not show benefit. And so we get many studies that say vitamins are useless, they're not any good. What we're failing to look at is what were the needs of that individual. And we do have testing available to determine that. It's just not available at the regular doctor's office. You have to go to the functional doctor. So we can know up to 33 to 35 nutrient deficits that any patient has. And then we can match their supplement profile so that we're actually meeting their needs. So that's the first problem. The second solution is that we have to use the right vitamins. So because it's so unregulated, there are studies that show that many times what you see on the label is not what in fact is in your capsule. And so you have to make sure that you're using a trusted brand who actually puts what is on the label in the capsule. And there are certain things on the labels you don't want in the capsule, such as the horrible fillers that many companies will put in their vitamins. So oftentimes, if you look at a label, the fillers, the other ingredients, if you will, that are below the actual vitamin list are about 30 to 40 different fillers. Many of them we can't even pronounce. We know that they're toxic. They're not any good. They don't make it easy for the vitamin to be absorbed into the body. And so we know that those supplements are not desirable. You want a supplement that has very few fillers, that are inert and absorbable, so that your vitamins are what we would call bioavailable. That means they actually get through your gut and inside of your cells where they're necessary to function. So those are 2 main things that I always counsel my patients about.
That seems so common sense.
Yes.
Is that why a current conventional medical model is failing us, or are there other things you want to add to that?
Well, the very foundation of our medical model is flawed. And when you have a flawed foundation, there is really not much that will come from that will be of value. And so when your paradigm is to diagnose and treat diseases, what you then get is more diseases. The paradigm has to be wellness. It has to be to maintain wellness, to obtain it and then maintain it. Our current medical paradigm is very reactive. So we wait for the bridge to collapse and then we go scramble and fix it. We have to really examine the infrastructure of a patient as we would want to examine the infrastructure of a bridge to make sure it's not about to collapse. And so we can do that in functional medicine and very easily with Chinese medicine. That is their strength, in fact, is to look at the foundation and where it's cracked, what's deficient, what is toxic, so that we can have a very proactive and preventive stance as opposed to a reactive stance. So you can look at just about any topic in our conventional medical model, and it will unfortunately be flawed for today's needs because it's very valuable for preventing death from life-threatening diseases, but it's not valuable for preventing those diseases from coming up in the first place.
Exactly. Cancer is a perfect case in that.
Absolutely.
You'd mentioned being able to test for the deficiencies. Process on that.
Yes. Well, again, when we go to the doctor, the conventional doctor, the model is to get blood work, which is not useful. It's not preventive by its nature. So blood work will tell us when there's a disease present, but it will not tell us how to prevent that disease. And so we have to look elsewhere for those answers. And where those answers are found is inside your cells, because it's within your cells that the body functions. So the body does not function from the bloodstream. The bloodstream is extremely critical because it will take nutrients to the heart and the brain and throughout the entire body. And your body is really smart. It knows that it must maintain normal blood flow so that you don't have a heart attack or a stroke. Your body doesn't know we have emergency rooms and we can have emergency surgery. So it's always calculating based on the premise that if you have a heart attack or a stroke, you're dead now. And so it's always calculating and making sure that the bloodstream is carrying all the vital nutrients, blood, oxygen, to the heart and the brain. And that's what we fail to understand in conventional medicine is if you're looking at that system, if you're looking at the blood flow, which is what we're doing when we look at blood work, we're going to see a falsely normal environment unless all hell is broken loose and there is a major problem. So once you've had a heart attack, you can then see elevated enzymes in your blood work, but you will not see it 5 minutes before you've had the heart attack. Diabetes is another example. So the body knows to maintain the blood flow in a very normal fashion to maintain survival. The way that it does that, it steals from other areas of the body that it does not consider to be as critically important, like hair follicles and skin cells, digestive cells, the immune system. Even if you look at the immune system on a level of priority to the body, if you get an infection, you're not dead now, you're dead later. If you have a heart attack, you're dead now. And so the body will preferably take nutrients from the immune system and carry them to the cardiovascular system because it knows it must to maintain survival. And now you have an immune system that's not functioning as well as it should. Now you get a cancer cell that's floating around and there's no response. And that's how we end up with cancer. So your body is really smart and it's always doing exactly what it needs to do to calculate immediate survival. So we've got to look at the cells that are being shortchanged, the cells that are not getting what they need in order to get answers. And that's what these particular types of tests do. They're cellular-based tests. So if you get your vitamin B12 checked by blood work and then you get it checked inside your cells, you're going to get two completely different values. The one in the blood work is usually normal. The one inside the cells may or may not be normal. And that goes for all vitamins and minerals and antioxidants.
What's the cycle time of being able to come in, get a diagnosis, and then be able to implement the preemptive strike, if you will, to be able to head off the potential of disease or death coming down the road?
It's pretty quick with the use of Chinese medicine because Chinese medicine doesn't involve any testing. It's a very brief exam and evaluation based on symptoms that create patterns. And then you can look at the body, the tongue and the pulse in the case of Chinese medicine to have an immediate diagnosis. So what we do with that information is then we prescribe foods that will begin to balance the body. So that's an immediate intervention. And we often have patients whose symptoms begin to improve within a week or two of being on their nutrition plan. Then it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for cellular-based test results to return because we have to actually wait for the cells to be grown in the lab. So that takes a bit of time. So it takes about 2 to 3 weeks before we have all the critical information that we need, and then we implement a treatment plan based on that data.
Got it. All right. The real reason our children are not expected to live as long as their parents. This is an interesting statement that you make because most people don't think it that way. They think it the opposite way, that since modern medicine is more technologically advanced and we're including more types of treatments, that they're going to live longer. And you're saying no?
No. The New England Journal of Medicine put a study out in 2005 that based on its projections and where we're headed, as of 2005, that their calculations are drawing the conclusion that the children of that generation will not outlive their parents. And the reason for that is multiple. What we're finding is our children are getting diseases that we used to not get until we hit 40 or 50. So they're getting aging diseases in their teens for the first time that we know of. And for the first time in 200 years, the life expectancy in the United States is expected to drop. And further, if you actually look at the 10 richest countries in the world, we have the lowest life expectancy. We're at number 10. So if you look at Japan, it's at number 1. It's increased its life expectancy almost 7 years in the past 25, while we have only increased ours by 2.5 years. And that's coming to an end.
What's the cause of this?
Multiple causes. Probably number 1 are the environmental insults that we've suffered over the past 100, now 200 years with the dawn of the Industrial Revolution and pollutants going into the atmosphere. So if you look at umbilical cord blood studies that have been done recently, they're showing that our children are exposed to 180 known cancer-causing environmental toxins before they're even born. And when children are born, they're tiny, they're vulnerable, their systems are not developed, and so they're being hit with these toxins before they even have a chance to fight them. And then when they're born, they continue to be insulted by these toxins. So we have studies to show that the average adult in America is exposed to 200 toxins before they walk out their door in the morning.
I got it. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Why are we still using chemotherapy for cancer treatments when it's been proven that studies do not work?
Because we don't have any other choices that we're aware of, is what I believe. So that's our go-to. And immunotherapy has not even proven to be as positive as we had hoped. So again, our foundation is flawed. We wait for the bridge to collapse, and then we go and try and slap it back together. So in cancer, we're trying to kill cancer cells rather than looking at the cause of the cancer at the same time. Traditional Chinese medicine shows us that it's imperative to look at the cause as well as kill the cells. And if you don't look at the cause, this is why we continue to get recurrences. So if a patient is fortunate enough to survive the first attack of cancer, it's not uncommon that you'll hear them fighting this battle 2, 3, 4 times before they finally succumb. And 50% of cancer patients will eventually die of their disease. And that's because we're just waiting for it to come back, and then we're attacking it with essentially what's a sledgehammer, rather than really looking at the fundamental principles of why that patient got cancer in the first place.
I get it. And you're saying Chinese medicine leads Western medicine, just to group Europe and the Western continents into one ball. You're saying that their methodology, the traditional Chinese methodology for treating their patients, is still advanced to what we in the West are using?
Far advanced. They have about a third of the rate of cancer that we do, and their cancer results tend to be better than ours. Now, they don't employ just their methods. They combine our methods with theirs. And so their patients don't just get chemotherapy. They are completely supported throughout the course of therapy with herbs and acupuncture, nutrition, and other modalities that will help strengthen the immunity, and they look for the causes of that cancer. So cancer is not genetic, as we're led to believe here in this country. It's actually metabolic. And if you look at the real causes of cancer, it's the environment that the genes were sitting in that caused them to be damaged. They were not genes that we were born with. They're not genes that were passed on from mother and father. They're normal genes that got damaged. And so that is not genetic. That is what we would call epigenetic, which means the environment is causing the problem.
Wow, that's going to change insurance rates a lot. No, really,
Well,
because does anybody in your family have cancer? Boom, I don't think you're going to work for our company. So
Right.
that's epic to make that statement. Yes. And to be able to back it up.
Absolutely, it is, and there's plenty of data. It's not, the data is out there. There's a lot of data to show that cancer is in fact metabolic and not genetic. We get confused when we talk about genes. There are the genes that we're born with, and then there are the genes that just got damaged as we move through life. So, for example, sickle cell anemia is a good example. If you get a copy of each sickle cell gene from your mother and your father, there is nothing anyone is going to do to stop you from getting sickle cell disease. That is a truly genetic disorder. Cancer is not that way. You're not born with a cancer gene. That's not what happens. It's that the body is so busy trying to compensate for all the environmental insults and the basically foreign environment that it's living in today, that it becomes depleted and its metabolism begins to decline over time as the immune system struggles and the liver struggles to get rid of toxins and to continue to function normally. Then the mitochondria, which live inside your cells, that actually house very important genes that are necessary for the cells to duplicate, they're very susceptible to environmental damage because they're not well protected. And so once the cell gets hit with those environmental insults, the mitochondria get damaged, and now the genes that are inside the mitochondria get damaged. And those genes happen to be responsible for cell duplication and death. And so that's what's happening with cancer. So we have to keep the cells healthy by knowing what are those environmental insults? And we're not going to stop them necessarily, but what we want to do is have the body be prepared to deal with them. So if you're having to constantly fight a battle and you run out of tools to fight that battle, you're going to lose that battle. So we have to continue to pour the necessary resources back into the body, which is what we're failing to do in conventional medicine, which is what Chinese medicine does so well and what functional medicine does so well. It can analyze what does your immune system need to function better, and how do we deliver that into the cells, and it can successfully do so over time.
Well put. What's next for your company?
We just launched some concierge programs. So what we've realized is because this is so counterculture, what we're talking about, that people need tremendous support. And the visit every 3 months or 4 months is not really sufficient. So we've launched some concierge programs. So we have direct communication and access with our patients ongoing, so that we can really implement this new information that's not so new, but it's just not really familiar in our culture, so that we can really instill good habits and really help people to shape their thinking with this new paradigm that's going to help them get healthier.
Are you growing? Let me jump in there for a second. Are you
Sure.
growing your company organically only, or are you taking on investors through capital formations of a variety of means?
We welcome investors. We've not really looked at that paradigm, so right now it's organic, but we have a lot of really great ideas. And so investors are always welcome. We've got some really fantastic plans, and even economic, talking about money. The Milken Foundation released a study that said we would pour $6 trillion back into the economy within 20 years if we just did minimal preventive care. And unfortunately, what our conventional medical model calls prevention is not. Prevention is not getting your mammogram. It's not getting your colonoscopy. Prevention is actually preventing the disease, not finding it as early as possible. So if we could implement a functional and an energy-based system into our healthcare system as it exists today, we could pour $6 trillion or more back into the U.S. economy within 20 years, which would be huge. The entire world is looking for a solution. You cannot outspend disease. We're learning that lesson very quickly. No matter how much money you have in the piggy bank, disease will eat that money alive, no matter how you slice the pie. And so until you actually begin to prevent diseases successfully, there's not a great solution economically.
Well put. All right, thanks for being a guest on the show. Appreciate all the information. I learned several things today with you.
Thank you, Michael. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for watching CEO Money. I'm Mylaine Riobe. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back with more great content just for you.